talk about things. It is Wednesday, the 26th of November, 2025. That means tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So, to all my fellow Americans, I wish you an amazing and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow. Hope you have a great time with your family, your friends, whoever you're spending time with, whether you get there by planes, trains, or automobiles, or some other way. Maybe you walk there. Maybe you're nearby. But whatever you do, I just hope you have a wonderful holiday on Thanksgiving, and on Friday, I hope you have an amazing Black Friday, and then over the weekend, have a great weekend and a fantastic Cyber Monday. Enter your holiday shopping weekend and season like a champ. This is not a video about that, though. This is a video about an update about what's happening back in the U.S. regarding the politics of the Trump plan for the Israel-Hamas deal in Gaza, which is basically being ridiculed at this point by Hamas as they continually violate the ceasefire in one way or another, and Israel continues to respond reciprocally. The latest violation is that the body of Dror, a hostage who had been murdered on October 7th in Kibbutz Be'eri, was returned to Israel yesterday, more than a month after he was supposed to have been returned, given the date of the ceasefire agreement. And there remain, right now, 2 more hostages in captivity in Gaza, presumed dead, but of course, that cannot be known until we actually receive them and identify whether or not they're alive or dead, and then identify whether or not they are in fact the people presumed to be who they're supposed to be. And who are they verified by? They're verified by the Israeli Forensic Institute, which does a remarkable job of identifying remains. They are considered among the best, if not the very best, forensic institute for specifically for events related to terrorism and war, because of, unfortunately, the vast experience we have in dealing with such things, all the different amount of attacks, etc., that we've had over the decades. So, we have, sure, there are plenty of other countries where there's more people dead, a lot more dead than we've had here in Israel in the past 80 or so years, 77 years. But nevertheless, we've invested significantly compared to those other countries in our forensic institute, and we've developed many techniques and methods for, identifying whether a person is or is not who they are supposedly, whether the remains of a person, or it could be the very smallest piece of matter, whether that small piece of matter belongs to a certain person or to someone else or is unknown, etc. So we have extremely brilliant scientists at the Forensics Institute who've been doing the yeoman's work for decades and decades, and they are, as such, recognized as among the top forensics experts in the field. Anyway, so they have positively identified Dror, who is, again, a victim of the October 7th attack. His partner was also killed, and their children had been taken captive into Gaza. Alma and Noah, I believe their names. Anyway, 2 young children who had been taken hostage into Gaza and then released in 2023 during the exchange deal that had happened a couple months, 2-3 months after the attack. About 2 months or a month or whatever it was, November, December 2023, they were released after, I think 50-something days of captivity. So the children were released, but their parents are both dead. You can imagine that's a terrible thing for the children. It's something that they will probably never fully recover from. In some ways, they will always, that it will scar them for the rest of their life. I'm sure they'll recover and move on, but it's the kind of trauma you never entirely, it never entirely leaves you. All right, and this happens to people in all kinds of wars and terrorist situations, and it's just bloody awful. Um, anyway, so the point is that at the moment, we have a situation where um, there are 2 remaining hostages. Hello, hi there, sup, duck. I don't know, I'm not a duck. Duck Dynasty. Oh, Duck Dynasty. That's funny. In Seattle, I talked to some guy who claimed to be a coroner, and the drunk guy admitted that he just fudged some paperwork sometimes just to get the job done. Yeah, that's not how we do that here in Israel. I can tell you, as somebody who has studied forensics in the United States with some of the best people from the FBI, the CIA, etc., where I studied, that was the norm. Here in Israel, we have the same level of benchmarking and regulations and rules, so we cannot just fudge the numbers as you say. And in fact, we have very often cases that are quite complicated and take a very long time because we're not interested in just fudging the numbers to get the job done, as you say. We're interested in getting the job done right, even if it takes a long time. So there have been many cases that have taken a long time, and they do. Sometimes they stay open for months, if not years. So we don't do that here. It's unfortunate to hear that the person you spoke to said, made that claim. Hopefully he was just lying. But if that is true, that's very sad, because people who are waiting for confirmation of information from a place like that, it's obviously not happy information for anybody to receive. So it's important that that work be done correctly, no matter who it's done for, by the way. Right? Good guys, bad guys, doesn't matter. You want to get that job done correctly. It's just like being a doctor, right? I mean, it literally is being a forensic doctor. Forensic examiners are very often required to be doctors. Not always, but in many jurisdictions. Or have, degrees in forensic sciences, etc. Like a master's or a doctorate in forensic science, whatever. Anyway, survival for war refugees is a lot harder than most people in the safe conditions realize. Absolutely. Survival for war refugees, and survival for anybody who experiences trauma in war, by the way. You could be living in a quote-unquote comfortable situation and still be suffering miserably from having experienced war. Like, your material conditions, while they do matter, even a lot, they don't determine necessarily the condition of your brain and your emotions. You want to call it your feelings, your soul, whatever, the psychological impact that it makes on your brain, and your physical being. Yeah? Because you might have, obviously, physical injuries or physical trauma that you can't recover from very easily. So yeah, absolutely. Context matters, right? In all these cases, context matters. Whether you're living in a tent in Gaza or even in a house somewhere in Israel, or you're living on the street somewhere in Israel. And don't think that there aren't any refugees who are homeless, because there are, even in Israel. Right? Not every person who suffered on October 7th is a comfortable middle-class person. Right? And not every person that suffered on that day, even if they were middle class or upper class that day, has remained so in the past 2 years during the war. A lot of people have suffered tremendously materially as well as in other ways during that, as a result of that attack and the aftermath of it. It's been a tough war for everybody, right? Palestinians, Israelis, you name it. It hasn't been easy for anyone, right? And anyone to claim that it's easy, sorry, they're just lying. If it had an impact on their life, It's not easy, okay? And most people living in Israel, for example, it's impacted our lives in one way or another. At the very least, we've been having to deal with rocket alerts, having to go to shelters because of rocket attacks, explosions around us, etc. In Gaza, they've had plenty of explosions, obviously, a lot of them, and very devastating because they don't invest in things like the Iron Dome, right? They haven't ever bothered to make a system to protect themselves because Hamas isn't interested in protecting Palestinians. Unfortunately, it's very terrible. Who's Black Cube? I don't know who's Black Cube. Am I a Jew? Yes, I am a Jew, Alphonse. I think most people are good, but some people that we trust our lives in, from the cashier at the store to police officers, some of them are lazy or evil. That's what Brian TTS Pros wrote. Sure. I mean, it's really, I don't make gross generalizations. Of course, there are good people and bad people in every society, and of course, there are from all spectrum of society. That you can't just categorize one group of people and say these are all the bad people. Like, can I say that? Yeah, okay. Here's a gross generalization for you that I will accept. If you're a terrorist engaged in terrorism, you are a bad person, or you are a person doing very bad things. And to me, if a terrorist is ended while they are engaged in terrorism, that's no great loss to society. We are better off for it, in my opinion. Now, are there even terrorists who stop being terrorists and switch sides? Yeah, it happens a lot. So do I think that every single terrorist needs to be ended? Well, it depends on the circumstance, right? If the person engaging in terrorism can be stopped without killing them, it's actually kind of better in many ways for the intelligence services of the side that's capturing them, because we can maybe get information out of them depending on their level of knowledge within their own organization. But I'm not going to grossly generalize about non-combatants like police officers or whatever, or cashiers, or clerks at a store, or people working any kind of job, right? People are people. We're all different. Context matters. Oh yeah, terrorism is definitely bad. Serial killer. Yeah, sure, of course. Goodbye, Alfonso. Shalom. Hi, sir. How are you? I am okay. How are you? Said hi. Nice to see you. Hello. Hello. Hello to you all. Are you guys having late nights or early mornings? You can type in the morning. Type in the chat. Is it morning where you are? Is it night where you are? I'm just curious to know what time it is. Also, what country are you from? If you want to let me know either of those things, that would be cool. I'd be happy to hear it. Love from Nagaland. What is Nagaland? Is that supposed to be Nagaland? Oh, Nagaland, India. Oh, hello, India. Love you, India. Namaste, India. I don't mean all police officers are all cashiers. Right. I mean, I didn't think you did. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't grossly generalize like that. Right. I know people tend to do it, to write things and sort of say things. And sometimes there's not enough character length to write all the nuance you want. I get it. I'm just giving you the nuance from my perspective here, which is I'm not the type of person that generalizes like that. And typically I will put some nuance on certain things. There are some things that need less nuance than others. That's also part of nuance. Some things need more nuance. Some things need less nuance. Some things have less nuance. Some things have more nuance. But yeah, like when it comes to what's happening right now in the war between Israel and Hamas, right, is and as I've been saying all along, right, before it was even signed, like there was absolutely no question it is being tested. And is being tested by the Hamas, right? They are trying to break the spirit of the signatories. They are doing everything in their power to get the people that signed this document to say, yeah, you know what, we're kind of sick of this thing. Let's just let them go back to fighting it out like they always do. And that would be not good from the point of view of an Israeli who wants to see peace, an Israeli who would like to see the end of Hamas so that the Palestinians can hopefully choose a non-violent group to lead them. Now, the reality is they're probably not going to choose a non-violent group, but we're still willing to give them that chance because ultimately it's up to them. It's in the Midwest. Hello, Midwest. 10 years, 27 decision for gatherings. Yeah, okay. Midwest, hello, Midwest. Sure, here's evening. Right on. Festival in December. You can visit the festival. Yeah, there's great festivals in India, I know. Some are quite popular. What I was trying to say is that no matter what job they have, some people are bad, but most people I think are good. I totally agree with you, Brian. Most people are good. Some are bad. Unfortunately, it doesn't take that many bad people to cause big problems for a lot of good people. Does there anyone know anything about retention? No. ZQED. This is not a channel for that. Why don't you go and look that up somewhere else? I'm sure you'll find a better YouTube video for that. Sorry, but you're welcome to stick around here and listen. But that's not something I'm talking about here. Okay. I typically talk about geopolitics or technology or marketing, things like that. But more and more about geopolitics because this is something I've just known forever and I've kind of restrained myself for decades about it on this particular YouTube channel, but less and less so over the past couple of years, especially, despite having lived here through many wars in Israel. I would usually put those thoughts into writing in newspapers or books or videos elsewhere, in media interviews, etc. But on this channel, I've been getting a little bit more into it. By the way, if any of you guys subscribes to my channel right now, it will really help me out. I will cross that 500 subscriber mark. I know it's still a pathetically small channel, but if you want to be the one to help me get there, click that subscribe button and you'll help me get there. I really appreciate it. Also like and comment and share, of course, because that way the algo gods can start helping me reach more people. So yeah, I'm delighted to even get to close to 500, something I never actually thought I'd do on my personal channel because I mix all these topics and I know YouTube hates that. That's life. But the point, here we go. You look like Osama bin Laden. Okay, so the beard and mustache, for those of you who are asking, the lone Z5J, this is for Movember. If you don't know what Movember is just a month where some men choose to not shave their beard or mustache for the purpose of raising awareness of prostate cancer, etc. So that's why I'm doing it, because it's my little contribution that I can easily wear on my face for a month, and it ends in a few days. So anyway, by the way, if you come to Israel, there's a lot of people with beards where none of us are Osama bin Laden. Most people who wear beards here are either wearing it for style or probably religious in one way or another, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian, right? Or other, right? There's a lot of other here, by the way, a lot, in case you're wondering, right? So not everybody here is Jewish or Muslim or Christian, but there are a lot of religious people here out of the tiny population we have. Most people believe in something, but there are agnostics, there are atheists, there are people who, are even anti-religion, which is beyond saying I don't believe in God, is saying, like I am against religion or whatever, I am against God, things like that. So that's even more ardent. And even some of them wear beards. Absolutely. Because like I said, some people just wear them for fashion. But hey, if I remind you of Osama bin Laden, a dead Muslim terrorist, oh well. C'est la vie, I guess. And we are Mongolian race, Asian people divided by people, united by country. I don't know what that means, but okay. Can I ask what's geopolitics? Geopolitics just means politics around the world, world politics, geographic, geopolitical, globally political politics, politics that impacts the world, international news and politics, that sort of thing. That's what that means. Spiral Moss. Yo, where are you from, brother? Kaneki. Kaneki, I live in Israel. I'm American and other things, and I live in Israel. Um, hello, Dora. Dora? Hello. I'm following. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. You're awesome. Dora. Appreciate it. There's a held message here. Let me see if it's polite enough to read to you. I went from a room. Okay, I don't understand. Oh, you went from a room with, you say, with a hot chick to a room with a bearded lady. Well, then I don't know what to tell you. If you want to talk to your hot lady friend, go talk to her. Enjoy. Um, okay, I can show you. I can show that comment, as silly as it is. Does it show me? It doesn't. It doesn't allow me to show it. I don't know why. Oh, another moderator handle this? Who's the moderator? Do I have any moderators here? If any of you are moderators, let me know. I don't think I've ever made anyone a moderator on my channel. I don't think I've ever had that ability, but maybe I have. Lovely trees, man. Yeah, there are some lovely trees here, man. There are some very lovely trees here. Yeah, let me show you if I can show you some of the bark. In Ireland, hey, God bless you, Ireland. Hello, Ireland. And the political situation is very fragile right now. America first. Bro, I love America. America is where I was born. Here, let's check out this amazing bark. You can make a great slingshot out of this tree, right? It's got that perfect Y shape, right? It's got that it's got that Y, You can make a great slingshot out of this tree. If you wanted to do that, right? You could model it. Be a very nice slingshot model. And then these are the trees called carob trees. Let me see if I can show you. There you go. Check this out. You see these green carobs? See that green carob? See how they get browner over here? As they age, you get the brown ones and the green ones. So these carob trees are the same carob trees species that have edible carobs. And if you've ever read the Bible, even as a matter of curiosity, you'll know that in one of the parts of the Bible, they talk about a prophet who lived under carob trees and lived off of carobs, which are this really unique fruit, if you will. You can eat the meat of the fruit, that long-looking bean thing. You can actually eat that. There's just hard hard grains inside. They're like big seeds. Can't really eat those, but you can eat the meat of the fruit, if you will. It's you eat it when the carob gets brown and effectively a little bit hard, so the meat is like chewy. They actually make all kinds of products from it. You can make honey-like products, just like you can make date honey. You can make carob honey. You can make carob chocolate. You can make all kinds of other products with carobs, which is great if you're allergic to traditional honey or chocolate. And yes, people are allergic to honey and chocolate, which I know is awful, but that's life. I mean, awful in like a gourmandise situation. Like you can live without honey and chocolate, obviously, but it's nice to have if you can, if you like it. But there are alternatives like carob honey and carob chocolate, and date honey and date chocolate. But carob by itself, even, is basically one of these extremely rare foods that you can live off by itself. Like, meaning you technically could just live off of that for a very long time, if not for your whole life, because it has protein, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, all the stuff you need basically to live. Right? It has sugars, has salts, has whatever, all the things you need to live from a food, which makes it a kind of a unique tree fruit, because usually you can't just live off of a tree fruit like that. But the carob is very special, and you can live off of that. at least allegedly, and from what I've seen on the nutrition facts about carrots, you can live off of carrots for a very long time. Maybe not your entire life, but apparently years at the very least. Which I think, if you can live off of anything for years at least, means you can kind of live off of it forever. For as long as you can live. It might not give you the best nutrition, but it will give you sustenance to live. Now, if you are in a situation where you kind of have to live off of one thing only for years, it's probably important for you to start looking for a way out of that situation from as early as possible, right? But that's how it goes sometimes for people, right? So anyway, the story of this prophet is that he lived off of these carrots. And by the way, in the city of Tzfat, or Safed, or Safat, depending on how you want to read it or pronounce it or write it, it's a mystical town in the north of Israel. And in Tzfat, near actually the central areas of Tzfat, it's in the central part of the town, there's a tree and a sign in this little kind of out of the way place where it has like a plaque where it's inscribed that is the place where that prophet lived off of carobs, and the tree that's there is a carob tree. Surprise, surprise. So yes, it's entirely possible to live off of carobs for some period of time, and I find that to be a very fascinating piece of our history. But more importantly, let's go back to our original topic, unless you guys want to shift away from that. It's a banyan tree, like a banyan tree, right? So America first. I love America, but I don't know what you mean by America first. We live in an interconnected world, so you need to get a bit more specific when you say America first. The beard is very nice. Well, thank you very much. Please provide. No, I'm not giving my WhatsApp number. We call it S bar, I think. Okay. The kind of tree is that behind you? Sorry, I forget what the original topic was. The original topic, Brian, is what is Oh, so hang on. Let me show you some trees. Since you asked about trees. Here. Hang on. This right here. Well, I'll stand the other way so you can see it better with the light. That is a date tree, and there will be dates falling off of here in usually it's around September, October, so the season has already passed. But this is a proper date tree right here in Israel, and you can see that date trees are actually not made of regular wood. They're cellulose, right? They have tiny little cells that are different than regular wood. So if you cut open a date palm tree, you don't have regular wood, which is why it's kind of soft and foamy almost compared to regular wood. It's very flexible compared to regular wood because it's not regular wood. But people will still use it in many ways like they use wood, but it really is not a regular wood plant. It's an important distinction that I make to you just to educate you a little if you're not familiar with it. So the original topic of the video is what is happening with the Trump plan for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, right? And right now that plan has been basically challenged from the very beginning, right? With Hamas basically refusing to accept it, right? They have just said outright multiple times, and again in recent days, they do not accept the plan, right? Like, they made no bones about it. It's not like they're saying, well, we're thinking of it. No, they've not accepted it. They've demanded to negotiate everything that they already signed onto, right? They want to negotiate all of the steps that they've already agreed to do. The only step so far that they've done anything about is returning all the living hostages and returning most of, but not quite yet all, of the dead ones. Now, when I say they return all the living hostages, it's as far as we know. Because as far as we know, the last two remaining hostages that are known to be held in captivity, as far as we know, they're dead. But you never know. What if one or both of them are alive? We don't know for sure. One of them is Israeli and one of them is Thai. Why they still have a Thai national there? Who knows? Also, Islamic Jihad claim that they only found the body of Dror Or after days and days of searching, when they knew exactly where he was the whole time, since he was literally brought dead into Gaza. It's not like he escaped from wherever they were holding him. No, they literally dumped him off somewhere and left him there. And maybe even if the people who knew where he was were killed, they certainly passed that information on to other people. The probability that that didn't happen is very, very low. Anyway, so it's very unlikely that the people in Gaza had no idea where Dror Or was, right, where his remains were. Anyway, it is what it is. He is now returned to Israel, and his remains have been identified. So, at the very least, his children and his family can have some kind of closure with a proper burial now that he is back in Israel, and they can have a proper burial for him. But again, bear in mind, the Hamas has played games with bodies before where they return some part of a person, but not the whole person. And then later, months later or years later, they say, oh no, we found more of that person. Right? They did that really recently with a soldier whose last name was Sarfati. And Mr. Sarfati was unfortunately killed. And then his returns were returned not once, not twice, but 3 times. Meaning different parts of him were returned each time. The last time was when they had that despicable video of them faking the unearthing of him by just bringing out a body bag with some of his remains in it, obviously, treating, like, abusing it on camera, by the way, because there was like an Israeli drone filming them that they didn't know about. So we see the Hamas people literally abusing the body bag containing the remains of a dead Israeli hostage, and they bury it, and then they fake the uncovering of it on a camera that they bring out to show as if, oh, look, they're doing this great work to retrieve, dead Jewish hostages. No, they knew exactly where the body was. They'd been keeping it apparently refrigerated for the past 2 years. And then they faked and they reburied it in front of UN inspectors who literally saw them, like, cover it up in a mound of earth. And then they uncovered it in front of them again. So it's a despicable, sort of barbaric act that they committed multiple times to this poor victim and to his family, who literally saw this appear, on their TV screens and in front of the whole world. It's just absolutely horrendous. Also, Iran wants to join in as well. Iran wants to join in what? The peace deal? No, Iran does not want to join the peace deal. Iran wants to start the fighting back up. That's why they've been investing. I'm glad you brought that up. Iran has been investing all of its energy right now in the past few months, not in getting water or electricity for its own citizens working properly again. No. Despite the shortages they had in the summer and in the fall, and they're having still now, they've not been investing in fixing those problems. What have they been investing in? They've been investing in rearming themselves, in rebuilding their arsenal, in rebuilding their nuclear plants, right? In rebuilding their nuclear enrichment facilities. How do we know this? We know this because we literally have air superiority over Iran. We can see everything they're doing in their country from the skies. We see clearly from aircraft as well as from satellites, and allegedly from people on the ground. Who knows? But apparently there have long been there's been enough people on the ground that we know that they are in fact enriching their weapons of mass destruction program as much as they can, as fast as they can. So don't think for a second that Iran is just we've beaten them and that's it. No, they very much remain an active, clear, and present danger to the state of Israel and to the United States of America. And they, to this day, continue singing every day, death to America, death to Israel, death to the UK. Actually, the order they usually sing it in is death to America, death to the UK, death to Israel, death to the infidels and hypocrites. So if you wonder who are the infidels and hypocrites, it's anybody who doesn't believe in their particular version of religion, right? Which is a particular fundamentalist version of Shia Islam. So you could be the most ardent Sunni Muslim and they still hate you, right? But they might side with you as long as you're fighting against Israel. But after that, it's back on between the Sunnis and the Shias. They do not love each other at all. And anyone who thinks they do, you really should learn about history. Sunnis and Shia hate each other a lot. Okay, they are not good friends. Let's just put it that way. They really, really are not. Interesting. So yeah, that's the reality of what's happening right now between Iran, or the Iranian Islamic Republic, or the Islamic Republic of Iran, and its military force that matters, which is the IRGC, right? And the reason that the IRGC matters is because they are the ones that control the deadliest forces that the Islamic Republic of Iran has under its command. They're kind of like this paramilitary force, right? They're not the official army of Iran, which is a much weaker army, and it's kept that way on purpose. Like the much weaker army is basically there to represent a kind of token force that is, sort of the national army, defense force, whatever. But they don't really do much. They just kind of, keep their tanks well oiled, I guess. But they don't really do much in the way, and they sometimes help with military activities and sometimes police activities. One thing you can say about Iran is that over the decades they have occasionally, not always, but occasionally they have actually helped the West combat the opium trade. That said, I'd rather that their government would just be extinct and let the people elect a better government that actually gives them freedoms, and then they choose to combat the opium trade on a regular basis and be actually helpful. But that's neither here nor there. But just to give them credit where the credit is due, yes, the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran has, in fact, on multiple occasions, helped the West fight against the opium trade, specifically the large amount of poppy farmers on the Afghan side of the Iran-Afghan border, and sometimes within Afghanistan itself, with Iran itself, because of all the smuggling routes that go back and forth from Afghanistan to Iran and then to the rest of the world. So yes, Iran has done some good things, even with this crazy ass regime. But again, those good things are a speck on the camel's ass, right? And do not compare to the amount of gross inequities and evils that the Islamic Republic of Iran has committed against its own people, as well as its adversaries and enemies in other countries. So yeah, there's that. I didn't mean that. Read the previous message. What? Your previous message said, "Sorry, I forgot what the original topic was." Before that, you said, "What kind of tree is that?" Oh no, Ruhan. Sorry, Ruhan. You wrote, "We call it Sbar." I think. Oh. You mean the tree is called Sbar? Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So, sorry, I misread it. It's the icons are all purple for your username, so I misread that. But thank you for clarifying that. In the meantime, I hope that I gave an informative answer about Iran and its role in the current conflict, right? At the very least. Hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, so let me get back to the root of the topic of the video again, which is, so what is going to happen next, right? If we know that we have this Trump plan, which has been basically ignored by Hamas, and they've basically done that on purpose to test the limits of Israel's patience and of Qatar's patience and of Turkey's patience and America's patience and all the patience that they can muster from all the different signatories, then what is likely to happen next? Well, it's really quite simple, right? At this point, with just 2 hostages remaining in Gaza that are known to be remaining in Gaza, right? 1 dead Israeli, presumed, and 1 presumed dead Thai national, but let's just say 2 hostages because we don't know if they're dead or alive 100% yet. We are now at a situation where Israel has very little reason to hold back other than to satisfy political whims of the United States or other signatories in the deal. And that means that if Israel does not get kind of positive results from Hamas in the coming days, meaning not just the return of the 2 remaining hostages, but actually the withdrawal from power and the surrendering of guns by Hamas and their withdrawal from power in Gaza, then Israel doesn't have any reason to really hold back. And as far as anyone's concerned, anyone who can read the map politically, you should comprehend that Israel is therefore going to be free to unleash its firepower and eliminate Hamas. And that will probably mean very unfortunate, but very realistic amounts of more, dead people in Gaza, which is awful, but that's the reality. If the Hamas is not going to get rid of themselves and their guns, they are likely to be removed from power forcefully. Because Israel cannot stand living next to a neighbor that has done everything it can to annihilate us, and then has sworn up and down again they will do it again and again and again and again. Yes, when we hit them harder. How else are we supposed to teach them a lesson, since obviously hitting them with parity does not work? Sure, yes, I do trading. To answer MR Ghost. Do I find you? Okay, that's an irrelevant question. Jade A9, this is not the channel for your question. You can go somewhere else and ask it. So there are probably, Israel is probably going to begin fighting with Hamas again shortly. And not just precision strikes where we hit a commander in a car by himself somewhere, like Israel has been doing a lot in Lebanon, recently getting rid of the number 2 Hezbollah guy, who was the chief of staff, Mr. Tabai, or whatever. He had a funny one of these names. He had one of these names that repeats itself. Anyway, the reason we're likely to have that fighting continue or start up again is because Hamas is not likely to give up their weapons. And they've said as much, right? For example, they said that they were not going to require the terrorists who were stuck in the tunnels on the Israeli side of Gaza. Currently, Israel controls about half of the Gaza Strip, and Hamas controls the other half. And on the Israeli side, right across what's called the Yellow Line, there are still hundreds of terrorists stuck in tunnels. And the Hamas leaders have told them not to leave the tunnels and not to surrender. And they said under no circumstance will they surrender. And they will not surrender their weapons. And we've already seen now multiple times terrorists attempting to sneak out of those tunnels to flee back to Gaza and trying to get out and being either shot, dead, or captured. We've had about, I think, 5 or 10 of them surrender as they came out because they saw that there were guns pointed on them and they realized it was, surrender or die. So that, about 5 or 10 of them have chosen to surrender. But there still are hundreds of them apparently underground because there's like an entire network of these tunnels. And they got stuck in a tunnel system network. Right, they're not all interconnected. It's not like you can enter from the north end of the Gaza Strip and walk all the way to the south end of the Gaza Strip unless you happen to take some very circuitous routes. And even then, you still have to come in and out because they're not all connected. Right, there is no one way to connect, and you have to remember something like half of the tunnels, or maybe 40%, 50%, roughly half of the tunnels have been destroyed in the last 2 years. Yes, they keep digging more, but they're not digging them as fast as the IDF is actually blowing them up. So not because now the IDF is in there. Now, yeah, sure, they're starting to rebuild tunnels in the half of the Gaza that they control. Obviously, they're rebuilding tunnels. What else do they do? That's all they know how to do. Build tunnels and build shitty weapons and try to attack Israel. That's literally all they know how to do. And on top of that, we've seen that they have now been busted an aspiring that they created of some 2,500 spies in like a Hamas spy unit or intelligence unit or whatever you want to call it, were doing surveillance on Israeli soldiers, on thousands of Israeli soldiers apparently, and they were getting into their WhatsApp groups and they were grabbing images from their socials and from their WhatsApp files and from anything they could find on these people. And in Israel, WhatsApp is like the most common chat thing used between people and in groups. My uncle is correct and incorrect at the same time. I don't know what you mean by my uncle. I don't know who you're talking about. And they studied all these places, and they made virtual reality maps and physical mock-ups, which were discovered recently in a tunnel area in Gaza that the IDF has referred to as the Pentagon of the Hamas, right? The Hamas Pentagon, because it was like a very vast trove of digital information and physical material, maps, mock-ups of bases, things like that, where they could practice and where they could, do demonstration or simulations of attacks and what they would do. And they literally had they have their computer programmers and graphic designers had built 3D virtual reality maps of the bases that they found images of. So that way they could kind of practice and familiarize themselves with walking around these bases and knowing where to go for certain things. A mess hall, a sleeping area, offices, munitions area, whatever, the arms cache, you name it, right? The armory, etc. All these different areas of each base that they went on. They were also discovering things like protocols and tactics and practices and meeting times and locations. All these different things that were discovered by thousands of people that spent years, apparently at least 5 years, maybe more, gathering this intelligence, right? So long before this latest war started, which means they have a significant amount of intelligence already on Israel, and God knows how many copies of that there are throughout Hamas, right? I'm sure even though the IDF found a whole bunch of it, it wasn't the only copy, right? Or maybe it was, but doubtful, right? Really doubtful. So now the IDF has that. I mean, of course, we always knew they're spying on us. Yes, we know that. But when you find such a massive trove, it shows you what scale they're operating at, and it's not insignificant at all. So now Israel has to do a lot of counter espionage, which I'm sure they're already doing since forever, because I know they are, to try to deal with this mess, right? And it is a big mess, right? And one way to get rid of a mess is meaning eliminate all of the operatives, even if it means getting rid of the people around them, because this is a war. Okay. Well, I don't know why your comments are being held anon. I'm not holding your comments. Keylock, hi. Dr. Harsh, hi. Popular with. Um, born right here in Israel. And according to legend, or the story, or whatever you want to call it, born in Bethlehem. Fun fact, did you know that there are two Bethlehems in Israel? There's the one near Jerusalem, and there's the one that's actually close to Nazareth or Nazareth. So the question is, which one was he born in? If you look archaeologically, I've certainly seen a lot more reason to think he was probably born in Bethlehem in the north, or Bethlehem in the north, which is in the Galilee, which is near Nazareth in the Galilee, right? Right, Jesus of Nazareth, they called him, right? Because he spent most of his life in Nazareth, which means he probably would have been born in Bethlehem, right near there. But who knows if he was born at all or not? I don't. It doesn't matter to me if he was born. I've said that many times. It doesn't matter if he was alive, right? What matters is that many people believe he was alive, and the lessons that people say he taught, which are written in the book, right? So that's to me what matters about him. That's the most important thing. And of course, it's wonderful that in Israel we do what we can to preserve all of those sites for everybody to see, the whole world, not just Christians, but also everyone to come and enjoy the holy sites, right? Whatever religion they are. We also we do our best to preserve the Muslim sites too. Unfortunately, the Muslims do not do their best to preserve, specifically the Jordanian Waqf does not preserve the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. They are doing everything they can to destroy any Jewish remains, Jewish archaeological remains that they've discovered. And they've literally excavated and thrown out like garbage, literally tons of earth and material evidence from the Second Temple that was discovered underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is literally on the Temple Mount, right above where built on top of where our temple was. So they built on top of the remains of a church that was built on top of the remains of a Roman temple that was built on top of the remains of the Jewish Second Temple. And they did that to defile us even further, humiliate us even further, and erase our connection to the land even further. But guess what? You can't erase facts. You can't erase history. We know that that's our temple. Everybody knows that that's our temple. It's even written in the Quran that that's our temple, as well as the Bible, right? By the way, yeah, Jesus Christ, son of Miriam, son of Mary, yeah. You can go visit Mary's tomb when you're in Israel, if you've ever been to Israel. It's on the eastern side of Jerusalem. You should go check it out. It's an amazing place. Do you think it's even possible for Islam and Judaism to live in peace? Yes, Anon, it is possible for Islam and Judaism to live in peace. Most Muslims in Israel, I would say, live in peace with us in Israel. The Jews and the Muslims, we live in peace, and the Christians, most of us live in peace. Right, day to day, we live in peace. Are there occasional flare-ups of violence and social unrest? Yes, absolutely there are. Does that mean that we are going to always have conflicts? No, it doesn't mean that we're always going to have conflicts. Does that mean that we're going to find an eternal peace? No, it doesn't mean that we're going to find an eternal peace. We are humans living in a democracy. People have the right to have different opinions, and they do. So there will always be people who have different opinions in this democracy. And there will always be people who protest one way or another for their interests. That's democracy. That's politics. And I'd rather live in a society that allows people to protest openly without fear of reprisal from the government than to live in a society where if you criticize the government, you might be ended. Right? So that's what I think about that. I think we can live in peace. I think we do largely live in peace. I served with Muslims in the IDF. And they protected my life and I protected theirs on multiple occasions. Right? Jew? Yes, I am a Jew. So what? Whistle Wade, right. Whistler Wade? Book doesn't have to be true to you. Right, the book doesn't have to be... No, listen, I think it's a great book. even if I don't agree with everything in it, right? I'm talking about the Christian Bible or even the Quran, right? I don't have to agree with everything that's in there to value and appreciate the good lessons it teaches. I can still disagree with things that I think are disagreeable. And by the way, don't think for a second that I don't think there aren't any things in the Torah that I find disagreeable. I certainly do. But we've also reformed our Torah. Right? That's what the Talmud is, right? There's an update to it. The Mishnah, the Gemara, right? Those are kind of an update to the Torah, right? One is an oral update of commentary and discussions about debates about different topics found in the Torah. Another one is kind of, guidelines or updated guidelines for what the rules are meant to mean and how they're meant to be interpreted, specifically for living in modern times. And don't be surprised if there will be another such update at some point in the future. Maybe it'll be hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. We don't know. When the time is necessary, it can certainly happen, right? As the Mishnah and the Gemara, which encompass the Torah, have, have shown, right? We can update our Torah. We don't do things like that are written to do in the Torah anymore because those are not appropriate anymore in the times we live in. Christians, by the way, have had reforms, right? And I mentioned this many times in many videos. Christians have also had a reform, right, with Vatican councils, etc., where they've updated what they believe. Remember, it used to be, Vatican orthodoxy that said that the world was flat. And they've since said, no, the world is round. They used to also say that the world was the center of the universe. They've now said, many years ago, not so long ago, but, relatively many years ago, that the world is in fact not the center of the universe, and the world revolves around the sun and not the other way around. They also said, any number of, they also at one point used to, for 2,000 years almost, for 1900 years or so, they said that Jews were responsible for killing Christ. But since the early 1960s, with the Vatican reforms, they said, no, in fact, the Jews did not kill Jesus. It was the Romans. We obviously know it was the Romans. After all, who else would have crucified Jesus? It was literally the Romans. So we know that. And the Christian Orthodox Church, known as the Roman Catholic Church, has said that very clearly, and most of Christianity has accepted that each in their own way, not just the Vatican. Jesus will come back. Maybe Jesus will. Maybe you believe Jesus will come back. That's great. To me, he's not a Messiah, but that's okay. I don't disrespect you for it. If you want to believe that he is, God bless you. Good for you. Be a good person. That's all that matters, from my point of view. There is evil among many different religions. Of course, there's evil among all different religions. So what? It's the amount, and is it systemic? Judaism and Christianity are examples of religions that have had very dark periods and have come out the other side better by reforming themselves. Islam is a religion which, since its inception, has been in a holy war, a jihad, because it has never conquered the whole world, and that is its mission. It wants to literally conquer the whole world. And until it does, it is in a state of jihad. So it has literally not for one day ever been in a house of peace, if you want to call it that. It has never been a situation where there is absolutely no jihad around the world. There has always been, and there will always be jihad until the entire world is Muslim, and only one kind of Muslim, by the way, because you got Shias and Sunnis, don't forget that. So they got to have their final battle too. And so do all the other kinds of Islam. And there are other kinds. So they will continually be in a state of war, right, until they reform as well. When will that happen? Nobody knows. Will it ever happen? Nobody knows. Should it happen? In my opinion, absolutely. They all need to reform. But who's going to do that? Well, you need somebody who's got a lot of balls, somebody who's got a lot of authority in that community, and somebody who's basically willing to die. Because anybody who attempts that kind of thing is probably going to die. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And you can't be like that person is probably going to be sacrificed, by making such a statement. Like, we need to reform Islam, and then actually attempting to do it. There's a very, 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 very high probability that such a person will be ended fairly soon after making such a comment, all right, by one of his enemies. usually from their own party, right? So if a Sunni guy says it, probably some Sunni will kill him, as opposed to a Shia who'll be like, oh yeah, let them reform and become even more kafir in their opinion. If some Shia does it, then probably a Shia guy will do it instead of some Sunni who would be like, oh no, let them reform and let them be more even kafir, right? Kafir meaning non-believers, not true Muslims. So Islam needs to reform, but it refuses to do so. And part of their problem is that they believe that Muhammad's words were perfect and his actions were perfect and he was the perfect role model and nothing in the Quran can ever change. On top of that, you have all these hadiths, which are stories invented, fairy tales and folklore invented or created or written or whatever, to explain the meaning of the Quran, but not in any way so as to change them, like the Talmud or the Gemara or the Vatican councils did to interpret for the modern age. No, no, no. The hadiths were written all within a few centuries of Muhammad's death, and none of them were meant to reform what the Quran says. They're just meant to explain to the common person what was meant by it. It's not meant, it's not even to debate what is in the Quran. It's just fairy tales to make clearer to the simple person who may not be familiar with the ins and outs and the details of the Quran. This story explains why it's okay for Muhammad to have married a 6-year-old and consummated the marriage when she was 9. For example, things like that. Hey, you guys want to see the canal? Want to see the canal? Here's the canal. Here we go. Can you see it? Is it lovely? Do you love it? I haven't seen any ducks here yet, but I'm sure I will. They come around every year. And other animals too. We've got all kinds of funny little critters that like to swim in this canal. Goes for a little while there. Goes for a little while there. Some kilometers up and down the way here. Goes up and down under that little bridge over there. Quite a nice little place. And this canal is fun. Jesus will come back. Okay, sure, maybe. Follow the golden rule. Yeah, follow the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rule. The other one is do to thy neighbor as you want thy neighbor to do to you. Basically, be good to each other. Right? Spread peace and love. Right? Need an update for all the religions. Well, we already have updates for Judaism and Christianity and many other religions as well. But those two are obviously two of the religions involved in this global situation, with Islam being the protagonist of a lot of the fighting, whether you like to admit that or not. Islam is definitely the leading cause of religious extremism that leads to bloodshedding in the world right now. Whether you like it or not, I'm sorry to break it to you. If you are a Muslim or a fan of Muslims, great, good for you, wonderful. I hope you're a peaceful person. But if you're a Muslim or a fan of them and you don't admit that the overwhelming majority of terrorism happens at the hands of Muslims in the name of Islam, right? Then you're either in denial or you're ignorant or both, right? Since 9/11, there have been 46,000 terrorist attacks committed by Muslims in the name of Allah. Now, you may say, well, they're not real Muslims, but they believe they are. So you go tell that to them. Everyone says, oh, these Boko Haram's not real Muslims. Well, they believe they are. Islamic State isn't real Muslims. Well, they believe they are. So that's like if I tell you, well, those Jews who committed that, and the Baruch Goldstein, that idiot who committed that, active terrorism 30 years ago in Hebron, oh, he wasn't a real Jew. No, even if I say he wasn't a real Jew, he believed he was. He was a Jew protecting what he believed was, the situation for Jews in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. The guy was an idiot. The guy was a terrorist. The guy did an evil thing, and I'm not sorry at all that he is no longer alive. Right? The guy was scum. And he killed 29 people in Hebron, which made it a lot worse, by the way, for the rest of the people living in Judea and Samaria, both Jewish and non-Jewish, but especially for the Jews. Right? It made it harder for Jews to protect themselves. Made it harder for Jews to carry sidearms, even long rifles. Right? Yes, Jews can still do that, but it is much harder now than it was then. And it should be, frankly, easier now than it was then, given the situation we are facing with the ongoing wars and threats from 7 different enemies, or 7 different fronts. Right? So I'm not one to not criticize when the side that I stand with screws up. I absolutely do criticize Israel or Israelis or even Jews when we screw up. Right? Well, the same should be expected of other people to do the same about their own people. So I expect Muslims to criticize their own kind when they are the ones responsible for the vast overwhelming majority of terrorism in the world today. And if you want to pretend like the people doing it aren't Muslim because you don't believe in the version of being a Muslim that they believe in, that's your tough shit, to put it Frenchly. Frenchly? Yes, to put it Frenchly. Speaking as a French person, I could say that. To put it Frenchly, that's your tough shit. They claim to be Muslims, therefore they're Muslims as far as anyone else on the planet is concerned. Maybe you have a different take on what their religion is, but they're Muslim, or they wouldn't be saying Allah Akbar as they're blowing themselves up or shooting other people to death or murdering them with knives or raping them and killing them and, doing horrible things to them. You want to pretend that they're not Muslim somehow? That's on you. Like, that is literally a you problem and not them. They are the problem, but you're making it worse by pretending that they're not Muslims committing these crimes, because they 100% are Muslims committing these crimes. Get back to your questions here. The laws were good for a time, but now it is a new time. Whatever. I already answered that question. Is evil man-made? Evil exists everywhere. You think there's no animals who do any evil things? Plenty of animals do evil things. Plenty of, even insects do evil things to each other. Plenty of wasps that do horrible, evil things to bees. And I don't just mean they fight them and kill them. No, they do evil things to them. Like, they torture them. They take pleasure in torturing them to death, not just killing them. Jews and Christians in my country, at least, do not need to reform. Muslims do. Yeah, generally speaking, I agree with that. Jews and Christians have had reforms. It's the Muslims who haven't, and they need to, right? Not lovely, but not bad. I don't know what that means. Oh, maybe you're talking about the canal. It's a bit small. Yeah, no. By the way, this canal only exists because of rainwater. Yeah. This canal had no rain in it, had no water in it 4 days ago, like on Saturday. But then it rained on Sunday, Monday, whenever it was. And since then, it's had rainwater. And it will get quite full. It will actually rise up even a few feet. Like, it'll be 3, 4, 5 feet deep, 6 feet deep at some points throughout the course of the wet months here in Israel. But for now, it's just very low. It's still just building. It's still mostly like wetland. Like here, look, you can see it's quite wetland, like wet grasses. And the ducks love to come in here and do what they do. There's a bunch of frogs and other animals living in here. It's quite nice. And there's lots of plants and things. The whole place is surrounded by farms, so there's lots of things for the critters to eat. The crows eat the seeds, poop them out, do whatever. I don't know. Other animals all over the place, from small little animals like ants and crickets to frogs that eat them to, butterflies or whatever else, any kind of bee, any kind of lots of little flying birds. Quite a wildlife-rich environment. And then we've got these kind of not otters, but not muskrats. I forget what they are called. They're now I'm forgetting the word. Anyway, we have some cool water, like land-based creatures that look like otters that go into the water in and out regularly. They've got these long tails that look like rat tails, but they're not. They're like sentinel beavers or whatever you want to call them. Not larynx. Sounds like, it reminds me of Lorax, but it's not a Lorax, but it's something like that. Hyrax, that's what the real Hyrax is here. So if you know what a hyrax is, right? And these aren't the kind that live in the desert environment. These are the kind that prefer the water. But there's plenty that prefer to live in like more desert climes or climates with less water. The ones here like the water. The dragonflies here are also very happy. All kinds of fun animals in this area. Certainly lots of wildlife. Like I said, lots of like wildlife in this little ecosystem around here up in northern Israel. Let's see what else is this comment stream saying here? Can't understand. I agree, mate. I live in the UK. Oh, hey, I love the UK. You know about terrorism? Unfortunately, yes, terrorism is not new to the UK. I remember when I lived in the UK, even as a little kid, we had to check underneath our cars every day for possible IRA bombs when I lived in London back in the days when IRA used to do that. Especially our neighborhood was what would be considered a target-rich neighborhood because of all the people that lived right there around us. So yeah, I know very well that the UK knows all too well about terrorism, unfortunately, right, for all the wrong reasons. And people could say, the Brits did terrible things, the Irish did terrible things. The war was terrible, right? It doesn't matter. Like I've always said, like war sucks. None of it is fun, you know. See you later on Discord. Oh, hey, bro. Dude. See you on Discord indeed. All right. Well, if you know who I am, you know who I am. There you go. That's fantastic. All right. I think I know who you might be, but I'm not sure. But yeah, okay. I think I know who you are. In which case, see you later, bro. Good to see you. Protecting from an invasion, how is that killing? Yeah, no, that's exactly. Well, killing is killing, but there's a difference between killing and murder, right? So to murder somebody is clearly a terrible thing and nobody should ever do it. Right? To murder is to have like an evil intention to kill somebody without a just cause, right? To kill somebody can be, if there is a just cause, like to prevent that person from killing other people, without like innocent people, for example. Like if you kill a terrorist planning an attack who is about to blow himself up in a crowd of civilians, that's not murder. That's defense against a murderer, right? For example, or if somebody has killed many people, a serial killer has killed many people, and he's been tried and convicted and sentenced to death. Well, when he's put, even if you disagree with the death penalty, if that society has decided the death penalty is what that person deserves, that is technically not a murder, right? That's an execution of a person who has committed horrible crimes and who has been sentenced to death because his crimes are so great or so terrible, which really is the right word. They're not great. Large great, yes, but not great good. So just terrible. They deserve to lose their life. And very often that is what happens in many places around the world. And one of the leading countries that executes people is, ding, 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 the United States, right? As well as, of course, China and North Korea and places like that, Russia, right? These places all have executions. But that's not to say that every execution on the planet is wrong. There are plenty of people who do horrible things who really do not deserve to live according to the societies that they live in. That they deserve to have their lives ended. You can debate over that and disagree or agree with it, but there are plenty of societies that have decided, enough is enough. When you do something so horrible, you don't deserve to live anymore, right? Now, I would say, well, there are many places where people get put to death where they've not had a fair trial. There is no way to verify whether or not they've actually been properly sentenced, let alone tried. So it's entirely debatable whether or not they should be put to death. But in places like the United States, even there are mistakes, right? That's why the Innocence Project has demonstrated for years, look, how many people are wrongly convicted. Like every case they take, practically, they manage to get the person off because usually they only take cases where they have demonstrable evidence that the person is actually not guilty or even innocent and does not deserve to be executed. And they've taken a lot of cases, which means there's a lot of people in American prisons who have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to death. Does that mean that every case is like that? No, clearly not every case is like that. There's plenty of cases where the murderers have long said that they are responsible and they accept their fate and this and that. So those people are clearly not innocent, regardless of how you feel about the death penalty. And there's not just people who are saying that to try to, get the softer side of the law or something. No, these are people who've already been sentenced to death. And before they were sentenced to death, they admitted that they did it. And after they were sentenced to death, they admitted that they did it. And on and on and on, right? So anyway, that's a whole separate topic, is the death penalty. Maybe one day I'll do a whole video or series about that. That is quite a complicated topic, and I do know a lot of the details about it. Be happy to talk with you people about that. Islam is dangerous. It's written by Anon here. Islam is dangerous, and it isn't a bad Muslim problem. It's an Islam problem, and so I agree with you. So yeah, so the thing is, Anon, Islam has issues and needs to be reformed. But the problem is the individuals who do the bad things in the name of that religion. Right, so I don't blame Islam for existing, because there's plenty of good Muslims, right? The vast majority of Muslims are peaceful people. Out of 2 billion Muslims, most of them are living peaceful lives, right? Let's be honest about that. They're not all running around causing mayhem and pandemonium and terrorism every single day, right? If they were, we'd be in a very different global situation, right? 2 billion people is a quarter of the planet. If 2 billion Muslims were suddenly to rise up and all become extremists, like extremely violent, we'd have a very different situation. There'd be a lot more bloodshed going on than there is now, a lot more, right? But there isn't. There's still a lot going on, but not nearly as much as all 2 billion Muslims were extremely violent, because they're not. So yes, the religion has issues it needs to resolve. It cannot just stay the way it is, but I am not the person that can tell them what to change. Like, I can tell them what I'd like them to change, but it doesn't matter. I'm not a Muslim, so my opinion doesn't matter. And the problem is also that they will not listen. No Sunni worth his salt as a Muslim that is an extremely violent one will accept the word of any Sunni that says we need to reform, and same thing for any Shia that says the same thing, and the same for any faction of Islam, right? Any splinter group of Islam that says, yeah, no, we have to reform. It's usually like, look who killed Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, after he made peace with Israel. Who do you think killed him? Was it the atheist Muslims, like the secular Muslims? No, it wasn't. It was the extremely violent ones that killed him, right? From his own religion, right? Extremely violent members of his own religion that killed him, because they saw what he was doing as betrayal. So they killed him. Which is why I say the probability is high that whoever suggests that is going to lose their life, right? So you need somebody who's very bold, very authoritative, very well protected, but also realizes it's probably going to be the end for them after they say that. Not a lot of people like that. There's just not. Let's see what else here. Entertain me, evil, like what? So again, I don't disagree with you, Anon, but about the religion needing to be reformed. But it is the individuals that cause the problems, not. We can't just group the whole bunch of people together and say, oh, it's all of them, because it's not all of them, right? Realistically, that's just not true, right? It's a percentage of them, even a minority of them, but they are still a dangerous minority. There's still hundreds of millions that are a dangerous minority, right, and need to be addressed, and the sooner the better. That's my take on that. Hold on, let me get back into a different environment here. go into this other location and continue this with you guys as long as I can. Like what? Cats? What are cats? I'll consider and think on the wasp. Yeah. Prairie dogs. Yeah, no, they're not prairie dogs, they're larynx. Hyraxes, like I said. When I said all religions and reform, I meant Christianity and Judaism have already, but Islam hasn't. Yes, exactly. I agree with you, Anon. I agree with you on that. No, they're not capybaras, Richard. They're hyraxes. They're not muskrats. They're hyraxes. Go have a look at what a hyrax is. But a hyrax, it has like a long rat-like tail, as opposed to the more mountainous hyraxes that tend not to. They have more like a short bunny tail. But the rest of them look very similar. The one with the longer tails, they actually swim a lot. They like to swim. They're funny little creatures. Belief is the willingness to kill or die for something you can neither love, improve, or explain. That's kind of true. But no, you can believe things you're not willing to die for. Right? Like you can believe, if I hold up an apple and it's red, you can believe it's blue. Even if you know deep in your heart it's red, you can still believe it's blue. And you might not be willing to die for that. Right? You might be willing to say, okay, sure, it's red. Sure. I'm not willing to die for it. It's a freaking color of an apple. Who cares? Right? Your buddy from January 6th? Who's buddy from January 6th? What are you talking about? I am Gnostic. Richard Mulrehead says you are a Gnostic. Okay, interesting. Sure, why not? You might be agnostic too, says Chris. Well, there's a difference between Gnostic and agnostic. Gnostic, agnostic. Agnostic is literally the opposite of Gnostic. If it helps you, great, but don't knock on my door at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. Keep your blues to yourself. Exactly. I agree with that, Chris. Live and let live, right? Do atheists knock on your door promoting don't believe in anything? That's a good point, Chris. We don't usually do that. We don't usually say, come to the non-church, come to the non-synagogue, come and just believe in whatever you want to believe in, and don't believe in anything you don't want to, and do whatever you like. So yeah, right? It's not a thing atheists do. I say we because maybe I'm an atheist, maybe I'm not. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, I don't consider myself a particularly orthodox person. And some Orthodox people will tell me, well, you're not religious at all. I've been told by Jewish people that I'm not Jewish because I don't believe. That's their opinion. They're entitled to it, which I am greatly in favor of. They don't need to be physically violent to agree with the violence. That's true. The trouble is the violence in Islam isn't a mistranslate issue. It's an upfront issue, and the Qatari of the Quran and the Hadith. Yes, right. That's why I always say the violent people who are carrying out terrorism in the name of Islam, they're not radicals. Right? Radical means very different from the orthodoxy. That's not radical Islam. Radical Islam is following the orthodoxy. They are literalists. The extremely violent Muslims, for the most part, are extremely literal. Right? They are the ones who follow the Quran to the letter, and they do not reinterpret it, and they refuse to reinterpret it. On the other hand, the majority of the 2 billion Muslims around the world are radical. In that they believe in spending their days being violent against non-Muslims. They're not waging active jihad against kafirs. So the majority of Muslims are actually radical because they're not violent. The ones who are violent are not radical. They are extremely literal, which I find a little bit insane. Oh, you guys, wow, so many people left in that 2 seconds that this was reconnecting. So yeah, Okay, I think I disagree with insects. Natural actions did you interpret as torture or evil? No, you can see these terrible. You're 48 and not educated, but like to learn. Well, there are definitely. I mean, you can see footage. You can see film that's been shot by very many wildlife documentary experts. The photography experts and cinematography experts who've done some great work, not just for National Geographic, but for Discovery and for the other channels that cover this kind of stuff, where you can see wasps actually engaging in the murder of bees, and they're not just killing them to take over their hives, killing them because they enjoy the killing of them. Like, benefit necessarily from killing these bees, but they kill them to enjoy the killing of them, to see them die writhing in anger, like in pain. Like, they have much quicker ways to kill them, but they kill them slowly because they enjoy watching them suffer. That is evil. And to tell me that wasps don't do that is not true. They absolutely do that, unfortunately, but it's true. Not all wasps do that. Yeah, there's one or two specific kinds of wasps that do that to one or two types of bees, but it does happen. And there are other animals that similarly do things. Like, sharks will torture certain kinds of animals before they kill them. If you don't know, go have a look. It's quite gruesome. Killer whales also. Killer whales are sharks, in case you're wondering. You live in the Holy Land yourself, Utah, USA, Iron Lion, and Zion. There you go. Okay, Utah, amazing. Well, hello, Whistler Wade. Greetings from Holy Land, Israel, to Holy Land, USA. Right? What about all the violence in the Bible? But no, I totally agree. Yes, with that comment by Steve to Anon. There's a lot of violence in the Bible. Um, really tough and dangerous. Oh, okay, Ray-Ban, you're really tough and dangerous. Well, stay safe then. Don't harm anybody. What can I say? Be soft and not dangerous, maybe, towards the people that you love and love you, and towards others too, so that you don't have to harm anyone. Deuteronomy 7:1 to 11, you wrote here, speaks of destroying enemies and refusing to make covenant with them. Okay. Um, what's the hell of a generalization that I'm making there, Steve? What is the hell of a generalization? Because I generally don't like to generalize. So what are you talking about? Anon writes, but even if the good Muslims can't deny the evil which leave us in a snake in the grass situation. Okay. Steve writes again, Yashara, are you going to back up those claims with some evidence? So which claims are you talking about, Steve? Please let me know, and I will back them up with evidence if you want to make it clear what you're talking about. I made a lot of statements. They're easy to research if you don't know how. Whistle Wade, that's a heavy take. Yeah, I've seen those documentaries. I've watched many, but I believe insects operate on a different level. You may believe insects operate on a different level, and that's fine, but okay. You can't believe that I know that they enjoy it. Okay, well, you can believe whatever you want. You believe or not believe, whatever you want. I've seen wasps do terrible things to bees when they clearly had more effective ways of killing them, and they chose not to use those ways with the same exact outcome. Whistler Wade, the dude is applying human emotions to wasps. He's not making sense. No, I'm not applying human emotions to wasps. You can see the different ways that those wasps are able to kill those bees and the different ways they choose to do it at different times. It's not applying different ways that the same wasps are killing the same types of bees. And they choose to do it differently at different times. That has nothing to do with my human emotions. It's just an objective, observable fact. Normal people don't live stream. Normal people don't live stream? Yeah, only normal people don't put any content on YouTube. As a matter of fact, more than 95% of people on YouTube don't actually upload any content. So what is surprising? Your comments on Muslims. My comments on what about my comments on Muslims? I said what about Muslims? I said that it's down to the individual. I never said that it's all Muslims, bro. I literally said the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful people. You want to say that's a generalization? Okay, I believe the vast majority of people are peaceful, regardless of what religion they are, including Muslims. I said that the ones who are violent are the minority, and that they are the exception, not the rule, and that they are, and the context matters. I've said that many times. It is up to the individual, right? We judge individuals. We shouldn't judge entire groups. Okay. Now I can say, and I can generalize and say, surveys indicate this or that when we survey populations. But those population surveys are based on large numbers, and they are not talking about individuals within that population. They're talking about statistical points of information that are used to, gather more information about an overall picture. They don't define the entire group, right? And certainly not completely, right? Like, even if I can tell you that a lot of Germans in World War II were Nazis, that doesn't mean all Germans in World War II were Nazis, right? And even if I can say Nazi Germany ruled Germany during World War II, that doesn't mean that most Germans were Nazis. And even if I can say that most Germans were Nazis, that doesn't mean that all Germans who were Nazis all did evil things. There were some Nazis who were just members of the Nazi party, just living their life, and who joined the party to get a better condition for their living standards. That's true too. You judge each individual case on its own merit. That's how it works. I agree with Steve. I think you're making a generalization how an insect. Okay, well, I'm not. And the insect example, really, why are you guys stuck on the insect example? I find it curious. If you want, I can do an entire deep dive into insects. Let me know in the comments. I absolutely will do a deep dive into insects, and we can explore this, and I can show you what I'm talking about. Hello, you from India. Oh, hello, Sanjay from India. Okay, Whistler. Well, I think the science says they operate on a different level too. It's only your opinion that they're trying to torture. Okay, you can. I mean, again, I'll be happy to do a deep dive, Whistler, if you want. Let me know in the comments. Write a comment if you want me to do a deep dive into that. I'll show you that what I mean. But and again, there are other creatures that do evil to each other, not just insects. Okay. Belief has nothing to do with science or history or physics. You can believe anything. Yes, you can believe anything. Exactly. Stephen writes, Yasha, the wasps chose to kill bees in another way. What the heck are you on about, dude? Okay. Again, you guys are getting stuck on the insect. I'm talking about human beings fighting each other here. That is the point of this video, right? It's talking about what is going to happen next. What's going to happen next is there's going to be a war. Unfortunately, again, there's going to be a rekindling of the war between Hamas and the IDF. It's very probable. Unfortunately, we're not going to see Hamas just voluntarily disarm and go away. If some miracle happens, maybe, by some miracle they decide, oh, they wake up one day, yeah, you know what, we're tired of ruling Gaza and grifting billions of dollars per year for our leaders. Sure, let's just, we're tired of oppressing the people that we've been successfully oppressing since 1987 when we founded our organization. We're tired of, just like slaughtering people in the name of our perverted version of religion. Yeah, maybe that'll happen. I don't believe it will. Right? I don't see these people willfully giving up power. I see them unwillfully being removed from power. That's what I see. I see the IDF removing them from power. Leadership and, you know, forcing them to surrender. That's how it's going to happen, like in every other war that's ever been concluded properly. Whistler Wade, it's not that I'm trying to change your mind, but I think we could say more at a different time. Maybe if you make, I will definitely Whistler. I will be happy to do either a video or like a live stream, something like that, and show you and go specifically into that topic. What advice would you give to someone who loves your videos but has autism? Subscribe to my videos. It might not help your autism, but probably not going to hurt either. And keep on working on what you need to do to improve your condition, because people with autism certainly can not only learn to cope with their condition, but in many cases can even excel in many areas in life that they might not even, you know, perceive that they can excel at. So I wish you all the best with that. Luth Lexor 123. whether that's for you or someone else. Um, Whistler, I think it's the Japanese John Horn. Okay, can't disagree. Hey, grand bro. Kai Demento. Okay, hey, grand bro. I don't know what that means, but hello to you. Um, 23 hex 1 writes two left boots never helped a fellow. Okay, unless the person is needed for two left boots. There could be weird situations, I know that actually, you know what? Two left boots have helped a fellow if that person specifically had two right boots and didn't know where the two left boots were, as in costume department managers at various theaters or operas or what have you. Happens all the time, more than you'd think. Not all the time, but more than you'd think. A lot of times, people in charge of costumes, boots, or shoe shops, or etc. For example, if you work at a regular shoe store, you can actually even imagine this in a regular shoe store. Have you ever noticed the samples on the walls are either all left shoes or all right shoes, right? Because I always put them facing the same way on the wall, so they show you either the right shoe or the left shoe of the demonstration shoe of what that shoe is like. They clearly need left multiple left shoes or left boots, or multiple right shoes or right boots to put on the wall. Just saying. Just saying. I know it's a silly example, but you know, there you go. You want demonstrations? I give them to you. You want evidence? I give them to you. 23 hex 1. Okay. Um, I thought you meant USA Civil War 2. Yeah, what an odd phrase, right? Civil War. I mean, we know why it's called Civil War, but really, there's nothing civil about war, is there? Really should have a different name. It's just a really horrible name for a war. It's like the most uncivil thing people do to each other, right? Practically. A non-right Steve, do you think Honky writing to Steve? Okay. Richard writes the reckoning. What about it? Richard, okay. Hugh Hefner gave his life to Jesus on his deathbed. Well, from every Christian that I know who's like a decent person, decent Christian that I've ever asked this question to, if you are on your deathbed and you've been a horrible person in your whole life, and I'm not judging Hugh Hefner. I'm not saying whether he was a good person or a horrible person. That's not for me to judge that. Like, it's not. But like, if you have been a horrible person your whole life, and then you're on your deathbed, and then you say, "Oh, I accept Jesus," that ain't gonna get you into heaven. Like, that's not how you do it. Right? You have to have done good things throughout your life, not just in that one moment say, "Oh, I like Jesus. I accept Jesus as my savior." That's not gonna. That ain't getting you into the Christian heaven, right? From what I understand, you need to have done other things too. I mean, I know there's maybe the odd exception or whatever in fairy tale land, but from every Christian that I know who's a decent, reasonable person who has a decent, reasonable view of religion, again, that's my own personal interpretation of them. That ain't gonna get you into no Christian heaven just by being on your deathbed and saying, "Oh, I become Christian." Like, sorry, bro. It ain't working like that. Maybe there's exceptions or whatever, but yeah. I know all religions are inventions of someone's mind. Anyone who uses religion to justify harming others is condemnable. I do not pick and choose. Right? Yeah, I don't believe in harming anybody, whether you believe in religion or not. What do you do for a living, man? I don't know who you're asking that. I run an agency. We do marketing, we do development, we do everything. Ideation, we help companies reach exits, all that stuff. Mostly in tech, but not only. And we do a lot of tech work for companies, whether it's tech marketing or tech development or tech BI or tech whatever, sales, anything, management, the whole deal. I have a touch of autism. Oh, okay. Well, good luck with that. I hope you. I hope it doesn't get in your way to having a successful and prosperous and happy life and a healthy life overall. Wow, Whistler, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Steve, do you think Mohammed is a good man? I'm asking Steve that. So again, Whistler, thanks for your sub. I really appreciate that. Maybe you are the person to push me to 500 subs now, or maybe I've already reached that on this live stream. I don't know. I know it was like at 498, 499 before I started this live stream. Yay! Because I happened to look at my channel earlier today. So if you help me reach 500 or get above it, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Maybe one day I'll reach 1,000. Maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. It's a long way to go. It took me how many years to get to 500? Let's see if I can get to 1,000 in less time. That'd be interesting. Islam is obviously less graphic than the Bible and Torah, but people can't see that because they judge the religion based on religious people. Yes, of course. I don't know why you say it's less graphic than the Bible or the Torah. Um, Islam is very graphic. Um, and specifically, it's based on the Torah and the Christian Bible. Um, so all of those stories are included in a way, and they're reinterpreted in many ways. Um, but since Islam believes in all three, like religious scripts, religious books, like the Torah and the New Testament and the Quran, you can't really say that it's less graphic because all of the graphic violence in the Torah and the Christian Bible is part of Islam. And you wrote Islam is less graphic. Well, that's not true because Islam includes all of those previous things. And Allah specifically said that to Muhammad. And Muhammad specifically said to refer to the more ancient texts when you weren't sure about a question. So, like if a question came up in Islam that a Muslim didn't know how to understand, you should refer to the Torah to see what the ancients said about how to resolve that question. Ancients meaning specifically Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, the Jews. So, no, Islam is not less graphic than the Bible and the Torah because Islam includes the Bible and the Torah. And even the Quran is very graphic. So I don't know what you mean. There are plenty of people who twist the words written about Jesus to harm others, no matter. There are plenty of people who twist the words of anyone. So yeah, so what? Steve. That's true what you say, but there are always people who twist the words of other people. That's just the fact. A birthday shout out to your brother Gabe Horn. Yeah, Gabe Horn, happy birthday. The brother of Essex Lad 8151. Happy birthday, Gabe Horn. May you have a very happy birthday and a long and happy and prosperous and healthy and wonderful life. As we say in Hebrew, Admeh Vesrim, which means until 120. And I like to add plus mam. So I say Admeh Vesrim plus mam, which means until 120 plus VAT or value added tax, which is a bit of a joke. May you have even more than 120 years. Right? So I hope you have a great birthday, Gabe Horn. And whatever you do, Gabe, keep on being awesome and, be a good person. And hope you and your brother have awesome lives and happiness always, and peace and love in your lives. Richard says Hugh is looking down from heaven. Maybe maybe he's looking down from heaven. I don't know. I'm not judging. I'm not saying anything about Hugh Hefner. I think the guy did a lot actually for society in some ways, and I think he can also be criticized in many ways. And that's like any person who has done any significant thing. Yeah, not any person, but most people who've done significant things. Like I wouldn't say that Hitler did a lot of great things, right? Hitler did bad things. And you're gonna tell me, well, he had Hugo Boss design fine uniforms for the Nazis. Yeah, I don't consider that to be a great thing that society couldn't have lived without. Okay, you might like your Hugo Boss, good for you. That doesn't make it a significant thing. He's just a fashion designer who happened to work for the Nazis. In my opinion, the world would have been just fine without him, even if you like his work and his the line of clothing that he created. That doesn't make it a great thing Hitler did, right? Nicene Creed, okay. But yeah, the point is, most people who reach any kind of significant prominence usually do some good and some bad, right? That's how it is. Um, Mauve, it's okay. Just be sincere and loving. Jesus, and it doesn't matter. Okay, that's what you wrote. Let's be sincere. Sure. What I mean, you could believe that, Mauve, but like, you're free to preach all you want. Um, People are also free to say thanks or not even say thanks and just back your preaching because, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but being preachy off as a bit annoying to people who aren't interested in being preached to, and usually people you're preaching to that are interested in it are already in your choir, so there's no need to preach to them unless you're a preacher and they're coming to your church to be preached to, right? So just let you know, when you preach in public, most people don't really appreciate that, and because it's you're sticking your nose in other people's business without having been asked. You're telling other people how to live their lives when they've never asked you for any advice. And that's why people are usually incensed by it. Also, some people can be offended for it, but for other reasons. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just letting you know. Like, I don't mind if you want to preach, whatever. But this isn't really the channel for that. But I say that kind of thing. It's fine. And I'm just letting you know why people might object to it. There's no dancing applied. Okay. Friendly fire is not friendly either. That's true, Whistler Wade. Friendly fire is not friendly. It's a horrible word, friendly fire. It's this stupid phrase. Um, but yeah, it's fire from friendly forces, meaning people on your side. That's why they call it that. But definitely a different word or a different phrase could be used for that. But it's how it is. I don't care what people say about the dude. If he used religion to harm others, I kill him. Right? But Steve, the Muslims believe that Muhammad is a perfect example for all men to live by. So do you think Muhammad is a good man? See, his grand girlfriend said he was genuine. Anon, see above. Right, Steve. Steve Muhammad made Islam. Right. Muhammad, yeah, basically told his scribes what to write based on his revelations from Allah, right? What he said Allah told them to write. And 2 subs, no way. Kali 20, thank you very much for letting me know. Yay, victory dance party. Yoo-hoo, happy, happy. Okay. You subbed only because I didn't ask. Well, thank you very much, Richard. Um, I don't care. He used religious beliefs to harm others. You're right there. Listener, 15 years and you have 20 subs. Is that me? I think I have more than 20 subs. I think whatever. But anyway, yay. Although I'm sure I have other channels that have like less than 20 subs and I've been around also for that long because I don't really ever put anything on them. YouTube can't lose, right? YouTube is always, yeah. Steve, so you believe Muhammad is bad? Then okay, you guys are. Please don't argue about. Oh, do whatever you like, actually. But please keep it civil. Is all I ask you. I condemn anyone who uses, creates, or uses religion to justly justify religious beliefs. Okay, Steve, you can condemn that. I guess as long as you're not harming anyone. Islam is not. It's not newer. I mean, it's not less shocking. It's absolutely not. You should read all three and compare. Yeah, I've read all three. I've read the Torah, the books of Moses. I read, the Jewish scriptures. I've read the New Testament. I've read the Quran. I am familiar with these religious texts, and Islam is absolutely violent. Um, if you don't think that beheading people, if you don't think it's okay to, if you don't think it's bad to be able to lie to people to advance your religious goals, I don't have to tell you. Anyway, that's going to do for now, guys. I really have to get going on a million and a half things I got to do here. So I'll talk to you later. Peace, love. Until the next one. Shalom.